Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. I've heard very good things about this brewery through the years actually, but until now I've never been able to get a hold of one of their beers to review for you here on the channel. So this review, to be quite honest with you, is long overdue. But for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Deal in the middle of Kent in the southeast of England, and we're going to have a look at my first beer from Untappd Brewing. So this particular beer is called the Atomic Space Beer. It comes in at 8.4% ABV, and this one is being described as a chocolate stout, although I guess we can probably describe this one as an Imperial stout as well. Yeah, 8.4% is probably, that's kind of on the border region of where we would start to talk about Imperial stouts. But yeah, regardless, I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. A big shout out in this review to my good friend Craig at Kent Beer Reviews. I think he's reviewed quite a few beers from this brewery over the years, so once I finish filming this one I will make sure that I go and check out Craig's channel, but you guys should definitely do that as well. Craig's a lovely guy, very knowledgeable about his beer. He's got a very kind of down to earth approach to his videos as well, which I really like. He's just very laid back, just kind of says his opinion and gives you a nice quite in-depth tasting as well. I would say I really enjoy Craig's reviews, I have to say, so do make sure you go and check out his channel. The link's in the video description below, and it's definitely nice to review one of his kind of local breweries here on the channel for the very first time. And I'm sure that at some point later in the year you will see Craig on a few of my out and about videos. We were planning to do a little bit of kind of beer stuff in London actually, so I'm really looking forward to doing some joint tastings with Craig. I think that'll be really fun. So yeah, big shout out to Craig as I said. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Untitled Brewing. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland of Scotland, which is always fun, but the English beers are very accessible, and as I've told you before, there's a really thriving beer scene down there these days, and it's always nice to try stuff from different breweries. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Untitled Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. And I should say, this brewery was actually a little bit difficult to find information on, to be honest with you. So I think the next time, for the next video we do from these guys, I will contact them and just ask for a wee bit more. But yeah, as I've told you already, Untitled Brewing are based in Deal in Kent in the southeast of England, a little bit to the southeast of Canterbury, and a bit to the kind of southwest of like Ramsgate. They're kind of in the middle of the countryside by the looks of it. But the company, it was founded back in 2013 by Sam Weller and then Paul and Kerry Campling. So Kerry has an extensive background in human resources, and Paul also has an extensive business background, while Sam was apparently a brewer, and I think it was a marine biologist. He was a biologist of some description, but also a qualified brewer, which is pretty cool. But initially these guys were brewing at the Ripple Steam Brewery in Sutton by Dover, and they brewed there until they moved into a converted barn at the Felderland Land Farm in Deal in 2015. But over the years they've continued to kind of grow the capacity of this brewery, upgrading the infrastructure and so on, and in 2019 they started collaborating with Deal Hop Farm to produce Prima Donna hops for more kind of traditional cask beers. I know I had a little look at Craig's channel earlier, and he's reviewed the ESB, which was brewed with hops, the Prima Donna hops from this farm actually. So yeah, Kent, as we know, is quite a popular hop county, if you like, East Kent Goldings and all of these kind of things. So yeah, it would be quite cool to try some of these beers that are brewed with the local hops there. I maybe need to see if I can get Craig to get a hold of a few of them for me. I'll swap him those for a few Swedish beers or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely cool to see a kind of more, I guess, could we say, an American style brewery perhaps. It's quite cool to see that these guys are having a go at some of the old traditional English beers as well. And I have to say, I'm not too familiar with the old kind of traditional English stuff actually. I mean, I've never been a great fan of the bitters, to be quite honest with you, or the golden ales. For me, the English beers are all about the darker things, and that's quite often why if I do a traditional brewery review from England, you will see me review the porters and the stouts, and sometimes the brown ales as well. But yeah, there's a great These guys seem to have done a really good selection of different beers so far. According to Untappd, as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 50 different kinds of beers. And there's a whole host of different things in there. There's a few IPAs, some stouts, some porters and stuff like this. So yeah, I basically picked this one because I liked the name of it. I knew it was a brewery that I wanted to get a review done from, so I liked the name Atomic Space Beer. You know, it kind of refers to my chemistry background, my physics background, and then, you know, bears are pretty cool. I love the story of Wojciech the bear, the Polish bear that lived in Edinburgh Zoo for years, used to carry the shells to the guns with the Polish soldiers in the Second World War. So yeah, bears, chemistry and physics, always a good combination. So yeah, that was the main reason why I chose this beer to review out of the other ones that were available. But yeah, that's to say, that's all I can really tell you about Time and Tide Brewing for the moment. There wasn't too much information available on these guys. I looked at different newspaper articles, I looked for YouTube interviews and information on the website, but there wasn't a lot. So unfortunately, yeah, quite a short history section on the video this time, but I'm sure we can sort that for future reviews. But yeah, as I say, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. But yeah, let's get on and have a little look at the beer itself then. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty damn cool, I have to say. You can see the pink bear just enjoying a spacewalk, which I think is pretty cool. Can't tell from the expression whether he's happy or what, I'm really not quite sure. But yeah, there you can see Time and Tide with the little kind of octopus alien sort of thing. Either that or it's a guy with a very kind of long beard, I'm not sure. But yeah, nicely presented beer, this one. It tells you about the ingredients on the back. As I said to you earlier, this one is an 8.4% chocolate stout, or I guess we could say an Imperial chocolate stout, but the malt base in this one is Maris Otter, flaked oats, brown malts, Cara Munich, chocolate malt, and then Carafa number 3. Carafa, of course, is a trademark malt of the Weirmann company from Bamberg over in Germany. Gives you a lovely kind of well-fired, toasty, bread crusty sort of thing. I also enjoy a good bit of Maris Otter as well. Cara Munich is very nice, but the yeast in this one is American ale, and they've also put a little bit of cocoa nibs in this one. So I'm curious to, I'm surprised they don't mention what hops they've put in this actually. I would guess maybe, I'm sure we can tell, we can maybe make a guess from the actual flavour of the beer, but yeah, I think this one should be quite interesting. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. It does actually have the Swedish pant thing on the back as well, which is quite interesting. I wonder who in Sweden is actually getting these beers. But yeah, it's got it's a 440ml can, and I think I paid about, you know, £4 or £5 for this beer actually. So to translate that into other currencies, that's going to be about, you know, €6, maybe about $6.50 American, and then, you know, about maybe 60 Swedish krona or something like that. So yeah, 8.4% Imperial Stout, this one. So one of the lower alcohol Imperial Stouts you're going to come across, but I think this should be very interesting. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Definitely nice to review one of Craig's local breweries here on the channel once again. So yeah, let's go for it. Oh, you can see that's coming out with a wee bit of pressure actually, but there we go. Yeah, look at that. Nice looking beer, I have to say. So, yes, there we go. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would kind of expect, this beer has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I shine the light through this, it does actually have a little bit of a kind of ruby tint to it. You can see some of the light coming through this beer, and it's just a very, very dark sort of ruby colour, this one. You can see that when we've poured it, it comes out with a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say very light kind of mocha coloured head. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head, but I mean overall it just looks absolutely lovely. Absolutely love the look of this beer. It does look a lot darker, I think, to you guys on the camera, but as I say, if you put the light through this, it does have a nice kind of ruby edge to it, or a kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi Max type thing to it. I love a bit of Pepsi Max, as you'll know if you've watched my live streams. But yeah, the quality of this beer, I think it looks very, very good. But yeah, nothing else to really say about the appearance of this one. I mean, for an Imperial Stout, this is kind of what you would expect, to be honest with you. Nothing really unusual about that. But you can see the head has faded away to just be a very, very thin foamy layer, although there is a nice kind of fairly thick foamy ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, I think this beer looks pretty damn impressive actually. So let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then and just see how we get on. I'm very, very curious about this beer. So yeah, let's go for it. Ooh, right. Straight away with this beer, you can smell there is quite a complex malty body to it. I mean, straight away for me, it's the carafa that jumps out at me. You get a bit of that kind of toasty, well-fired bread crust sort of thing. For me, that's carafa all the way. You get a little bit of a brown bready quality in there as well, like a kind of almost rye bready sort of thing. So yeah, the aroma of this beer, I think, is really quite interesting. So yeah, I do like how that goes together, I have to say. It really comes across as very kind of bready. You don't get too much in the way of chocolate out of this, I think. I mean, there is although in fairness, I think, yeah, this beer, yeah, toasty, well-fired bread crust is forming the backbone of the beer. There's a bit of brown bread in there. You can get a few little woody undertones. There's a few other kind of grainy things going on. You know, maybe a slight little bit of nuttiness as well, actually. So I like how I do like how that goes together in this beer, I have to say. So yeah, the more that I smell of it, the more I do get a little bit of the chocolate out of it. I mean, it's quite a dry chocolate. It's like when you smell that powder that you use to make Nesquik chocolate milk. It's a little bit like that, actually, but maybe a little bit kind of higher in cocoa, maybe a 70-80% cocoa type thing that you're getting out of it. You can get a nice little bit of a kind of biscuity quality at this beer, a sweet. You know, there is a nice little bit of a kind of sweet, how would you say, a little bit of a kind of sort of sweet but slightly toasty brown sugary element there. That's the Maris Otter that's giving you that. But yeah, I'd be curious to know what the brown malts are contributing to this. Maybe they're going to give you a little bit more of the roundness, because the more that you smell of this beer, the more it kind of sweetens up. And then you've also got some other really interesting things. So there's a little bit of a kind of smooth, oaty quality coming out of the beer as well. You can smell a little bit of the oats in this one, in fairness. The more that you smell of it, and the more your nose adjusts. But yeah, I really like how everything goes together in this beer, actually. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one, I think, is really pretty nice, I have to say. So yeah, I think this is a very, very nice beer in terms of its malty perspective. You do get a wee bit of a toasty, well-fired kind of thing in this one, but it smells as if it's kind of very layered, actually. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, then let's look at the hoppy side of the beer. I mean, for me, I do think there's English hops in this, to be honest, because the earthiness just has a little bit more kind of prominence. There's a wee bit of a herbal character in there as well, and for me, the English hops really give you that kind of herbal note. That's the thing that's really distinctive about them. And the grassiness is quite soft as well, I have to say. So, pardon me. Yeah, I do like this goes together, and I just realised it says GB, so it must be. It looks as if it's all British ingredients in this one, apart from perhaps the Cara Munich and you know, the Carafa malts. Carafa malt is made in Germany. But yeah, the aroma out of this beer is nice, but the hops, I think, are probably English. It's probably, you know, when they're in Kent, it's just kind of logical that they would use Kent hops, to be honest. So it's probably a Kent Golding or something like that, or maybe a wee bit of Bramling's Cross or something they've put in this. Bramling's Cross, of course, is a lovely hop to use in English barley wines, because it gives you that kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing. Endeavour's another good one as well. But I'm sure we'll be able to tell a little bit more from the taste. But yeah, I guess probably maybe Challenger would be the other one. There's quite a few varieties of English hops. But yeah, the fruity aroma in this beer is quite nice. You get a nice little bit of a kind of plummy quality out of it. I'd say maybe a wee bit of raisin too, softer figs, and then a wee bit of an oily kind of blackcurranty sort of thing. And I mean, all of these or blackberry, I should say, not blackcurrant. So there is a wee bit of that going on in this one. So it's kind of everything you'd expect from an Imperial Stout, to be honest with you. But it really leans towards that kind of bread crusty sort of thing, actually. It's not quite as chocolate in the aroma as you might expect when they're calling it a chocolate stout, but I'm sure we'll get more of that in the flavour. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Atomic Space Beer, a chocolate stout coming in at 8.4% ABV from Time and Tide Brewing in Deal in Kent in the southeast of England. Big shout out to my friend Craig at Kent Beer Reviews once again. Make sure you show him some love. That link's in the description for you below. But let's have a taste of this beer and see how we go. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's actually a very, very nice beer, I have to say. So thumbs up to Time and Tide for this one. Yeah, you know, it's got a really lovely smoothness to it. For an 8.4%er, this beer's got a really nice kind of roundness to it. That's my first impression of it. So it's very solid, actually, I have to say. yeah, and the mouthfeel comes across as almost kind of slightly creamy as well, which is really interesting. But I guess when it's got oats and wheat in it, so it's got oats in it, I'm talking rubbish, it's not got wheat in it, but when it's got oats in it, that kind of rounds it out quite nicely, I think. But yeah, really slick Imperial Stout, this one, and very, very smooth. So yeah, where do we start with breaking down the flavour of this one then? But I will say, thumbs up to Time and Tide. You know, if this beer is anything to go by, I would be quite curious to try the other ones. But yeah, let's try and break this down then. So straight away with this beer, in the middle third of your palate, you can feel that sort of toasty, well-fired bread crust. That just, pardon me, blankets the middle of your palate in there. So yeah, I really like how that side of the beer goes together actually. So yeah, that carafa malt is just forming the backbone of the beer. Absolutely, and you can feel that the further you go into the aftertaste, that does kind of dry out a little bit. And we're just talking about the middle third of your palate now, incidentally. But yeah, in that middle third of your palate, the carafa, the well-fired bread crust, forms the backbone of the beer. There's a very nice kind of smooth brown bready sort of thing in there. And then I guess that's the brown malts that are going to give you that. But then on top of that, you start to get the chocolate and the brown sugar. So for me, on top of that bread, you've got that kind of powdery, almost slightly charred chocolatey quality to it. You know, it's a sort of 70-80% cocoa kind of thing that's coming out of this beer, which I really like. But then in the very centre of your palate, you've got a nice little kind of more oily circle where you've got a sweet caramel, a little bit more of a kind of biscuity vibe to the beer as well. And I think that works very, very well for it actually. So again, thumbs up to Time and Tide Brewing for this one. Yeah. How do you say? This is a beer. It is actually, it does develop a good bit of dryness to it, but like I say, at the same time, it's quite slick and it's very smooth. But yeah, in the middle of your palate, you get a really nice kind of brown sugary element to it. It feels, it's not quite treacly molasses like, but it's almost like you've got the kind of chocolatey, the powdery dark chocolate that I'm talking about in this one, just drying the malt, the middle part, the middle third of your palate out. But then in the very centre of it, you've just got a wee slightly oily, kind of darker caramel quality to the beer, but the caramel notes are really oily. That's the boozy alcohol side of the beer, of course, that's coming out there. And then as you move, in fairness, as you move further out from that a little bit, you do start to get a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of the beer. But you can feel that the oats, I think, you can feel that the oats are kind of smoothing out the beer, particularly on that front, the front half of that middle third of your tongue. So it's really interesting how all of that just kind of pieces together, to be honest with you. It's got a lovely complexity in that middle third of your tongue. But yeah, if you go towards the back of that middle third of your tongue, you will get a bit more of that kind of well-fired, kind of toasty bread crusty sort of thing there. There is a bit of dryness in that border region. And as you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel some of the oaty smoothness, I think, comes out of the beer again in that back third of your palate, and it feels slightly thicker, but you can feel that the toasty, bread crusty sort of thing spreads back a little bit further as well. So that's a really interesting point about this beer as well, actually, that the oats go so far back in the palate, because usually that's where you pick up the wheat and, you know, the kind of more bitter black malty qualities to the beer. So yeah, that's a very, very interesting point about this one. But yeah, the malty side of this beer, I think, is really nice. You will notice if you go to the very centre of your palate, then just move forward, you get a wee nutty quality out of it. There's one or two little woody elements to the beer as well. But yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one too, definitely. But yeah, the malty side of this beer is really nicely done. Let's take a look at the hoppy side then. Back corners of the palate, there is a good little bit of earthiness to this one. It comes across, it could be a combination of different English hops, come to think of it. I don't think, I don't think there's Fugels in this one. Fugels, of course, gives you that sort of ashy type quality to the earthiness there, but the earthiness in this beer is quite bitter. I mean, could it be a little bit of a Kent Golding? Because some of the green qualities of the beer are a little bit more like Kent Golding, but I want to say that there's maybe like a, you know, Challenger. I remember Challenger had quite a strong earthy component to it. So I do wonder if there's maybe a bit of Challenger in this beer. So yeah, there's quite a strong earthy component to this beer in the back corners of the palate, and as you move further forward, that gradually, it does maintain a bit of strength for a while, but then it does start to fade away, and as you get to the front corners of the palate, there's a nice little floral note coming out of the beer, but then round the front curve of the tongue, it's got a little bit more of a kind of grassy vibe to it, but the grassiness does have a little bit of that herbal quality. And as I said earlier, for me, the English hops have always had this kind of herbal type quality to them. So that's a very interesting point for me about this beer. The green side of it's quite interesting. It does have a wee teeny bit of an aromaticity to it on the front curve of the tongue too. So yeah, the green component to the hops in this beer is quite interesting for me. I've not had too many beers, American style beers if you like, that have been brewed with these English hops. So that's an interesting point to make about these Time and Tide beers, I guess. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer now. I think we've covered everything else quite well. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of Bramling's Cross in this one as well, because the fruity notes are quite familiar. But I mean, the other option for that would be Endeavour. I don't know what the difference really between those two hops are. I would love to try a few IPAs that are brewed with these English hops, you know, single hop IPAs, just to get a full kind of feel of what these ones are all about. I don't know if any breweries in England are doing that, come to think of it. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think, is kind of what you would expect from this kind of beer. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, where you get that border region between front and middle third of your palate, you do get a little bit of that toasty, well-fired, kind of brownie type vibe out of the beer. So you do get a little bit of that in this one. So yeah, as you move further forward from that, there is a wee bit of a kind of juicy, plummy quality there at the back of that front third of your palate, but as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of a kind of lighter, juicy, kind of figgy quality that comes out of it, and I do like how that goes together in this one. So it starts off at the back that it's quite oily and plummy, and as you move further forward, it's a little bit kind of it is a little bit more sort of figgy, and then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a little bit of a kind of more juicy black curranty quality underneath, and then a more kind of oily blackberry note pushing its way out the further you go into the aftertaste. I do want to say Bramling's Cross. There is just something that's a little bit familiar about that. The other thing that is quite similar to is you know, Northern Brewer from Germany, but I think, you know, it's saying that it's the ingredient's GB, although maybe that's just I think that looks, by the looks of it, that's maybe just the language. So potentially there could be some things in there, but yeah, I think there's definitely a good English hop note to this one. I mean, if we're talking American hops, the obvious choice would maybe be Magnum, and William Eck can give you some of these red fruity notes as well. If we're talking German hops, you know, Northern Brewer is a popular one to use in Doppelbox. So yeah, those are other options, but I do think I've got a feeling that it's maybe a little bit of Bramling's Cross and a little bit of, you know, a Kent Golding or something like that that's in here. I think it's English hops they've used in this, especially if they're so close to a hop farm. I wouldn't be surprised if they are focusing on the English hops. But the fruity side of this beer, it's got a little bit of wetness to it, but it does develop a wee bit of an oiliness the later that you go into the aftertaste too. So yeah. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think, is really very nicely done. So yeah, big thumbs up to Time and Tide for this one. This is just a solid Imperial Stout. It's just very well executed actually, and I think it kind of straddles the line between kind of being traditional and English and being American. I think it finds a really good happy medium actually. That's probably how I would describe this one. It really straddles that line between English and American quite well actually for me. I need to check a few more of Craig's reviews from this brewery, just listen to his kind of thoughts actually, and see if he's reviewed this one. But yeah, I think this particular beer straddles that American-English sort of line actually. But yeah, I think that covers the flavour profile of the beer quite well. In terms of the mouthfeel, as I said, this beer for me is really quite slick. You know, I describe this one as being kind of towards the top end of mid-body. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got a nice slick and almost slightly oily mouthfeel. But you've got a lovely kind of it tells you on the can that this one is 40 IBUs. I don't know if I would have guessed that, to be honest with you. I might have thought it was a little bit more, but remember my IBU counts are probably the weakest part of my beer reviews. So yeah, I think I probably would have guessed maybe about 50 or 60 IBUs for this, probably, come to think of it, because a lot of the bitterness I think comes from the malty side of the beer. There's a good bit of graininess and dryness and roastiness comes out of the beer later on, so I don't think too much of the bitterness comes from the hops, in honesty. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer also gives you a nice little bit of a kind of round oiliness as well. So I think the beer has a slickness but a slight oiliness to it as well. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, it says 40 IBUs. There's a good little bit of bitterness from the earthiness and some of the kind of roasty, well-fired bread crusty side of things. But the malt base gives you a degree of sweetness and also a slightly oily, fruity character as well. So I really like how everything goes together in this one. It gets a big thumbs up from me, this beer. I certainly like how this pieces together. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. For an 8.5%, a lovely kind of smooth and just very, very slick beer. So thumbs up to Time and Tide Brewing for this. I think they've done a very nice job here. So yeah, awesome stuff, awesome stuff. I look forward to trying more from these beers, and I need to go and watch some of Craig's reviews now, definitely. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Time and Tide Brewing, and we will definitely return to these guys at some point soon. I'm curious to see about some of their IPAs and lagers and stuff like this, so hopefully I can do that soon. I'd love to try the ESB from these guys, actually. I need to try and develop a bit of an appreciation for that style. It's never been my favourite, but from what I gather, these guys have done a pretty solid ESB in the past, so hopefully we can review that at some point. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Time and Tide. Make sure that you go and check out my friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews, and I will catch you guys very, very soon on the next one. This one was the Atomic Space Beer, an 8.4% Imperial Chocolate Stout from Time and Tide Brewing in Deal in Kent in the southeast of England. Slàinte, skull, cheers, and catch you guys very soon.